It was very emotional as we're watching JR inform the audience that Owen Hart has died. And I don't know why, because we have seen this before from WWE documentaries, from the Dark Side of the Ring. I mean, there's been so many. I've had to revisit it through podcasts with Jeff Jarrett, with Bruce, with JR. So I've watched this footage a lot, and I don't know why, but I found myself early in the morning when I first watched this episode getting pretty emotional during JR revealing that Owen had died because I'm just thinking about as I'm looking at Jerry's face, this is a real life circumstance where all these guys are like a band of brothers, members of this traveling circus, and they're all over the road together. But we at home, because I remember watching this at home on pay per view, we had no idea what's going on. And really and truly, neither did the people in the arena. And in the middle of this make believe fantasy land where there's an undead zombie walking around threatening to set people on fire, and there's all this silly over the top, man, here's this really sobering real life thing. It was still tough to watch. And I guess we've talked about it enough that I don't know. I felt like it had sort of calloused over and I was familiar with it. But it's hard to watch back, man, is it not?
It was, and I think part of it, Conrad, is that you've gotten to know Jer so much more,
Yes.
and the more you know somebody, the easier it is to kind of understand how they were feeling in that moment.
Yes.
And part of it is, that footage. I mean, I don't know how you could watch that and not get emotional. To be honest with you, I could just feel Jr. I felt like he was sitting right in front of me, and it was happening live. The emotion was so strong; it's hard not to feel it.
We uh we got to talk about the Owen stuff. Meltzer and Landsberg are both talking about how, and they're taking Vince to task for having the guys continue to wrestle and keep the show going on the same mat where Owen's blood was. Now, this is a small note, but it was pointed out to me this morning by the Blue Meanie, friend of the show, Mr. Brian Heffron, but that was not actually Owen's blood. I want to share a text message that I got from Blue Meanie earlier today. He says there's a misconception that when Owen died and the show went on, that was his blood in the ring, but it wasn't his blood. On Sunday Night Heat, Goldust and I wrestled the Hardys with Michael Hayes in their corner. After the match, there was a bloodbath on the Hardys. You can see everybody covered in blood, but you can also see Matt Hardy. Matt Hardy put his bloodied arm, if you will, it's not real blood, on the mat, coincidentally, where Owen would later fall. So I know that's silly and it shouldn't matter, but I just want to point out that that was Hollywood on the pregame show, not actually from the Owen fall. Not that it changes anything, it doesn't take anything away from the severity of the moment. But I appreciate Blue Meanie reaching out to let us know that little detail. The big debate, of course, is whether or not they should continue the show. And there was an interview that Brett did with my Landsberg for Off the Record up in TSN in Canada that I thought was pretty fair. He said something along the lines of, I wonder if Vince would have continued the show if that was his son Shane splattered across the mat. And then Vince said, had it been me who splatted on the mat, I would want the show to go on. I would do it with me, even to this day. I absolutely would. That's an interesting response that I have to admit I didn't expect. I was really wowed with Brett's challenge of what would he do if it was Shane, but I don't know if I was shocked or impressed or ashamed when Vince said, not only would I do it for Shane, I would want them to do it if it was me. What'd you make of that, Eric?
I didn't hear him say, not only would I do it if it was Shane, I'd do it for me. I heard him say, if it was me, that was just, maybe I missed it. That part doesn't surprise me. And I've been asked that question, and obviously not recently, but over the years, particularly in proximity to the tragedy, I had been asked several times, many times, what I would have done in that situation. And my answer is probably today the same as it was then, in that I don't know what I would have done. And I don't think anybody can honestly say they know what they would have done unless they've been in that situation. And when I say situation, I don't mean somebody dying in the ring, but I mean when you've got an arena full of people, you're in the middle of a show, you've got a commitment, a financial commitment, all kinds of them associated with this project. You have to make a decision. I think I said I would probably have done what Vince did. I think I would have, but I also don't know because I've never experienced that type of emotion in a tragedy like that. So I'm not 100% sure what I would have done, to be very honest. But I also understand Vince's response because there's a part of me that thinks I probably would have, possibly would have continued the show. I think as a producer, especially for someone like Vince, the show does go on. The race goes on. People have died on NASCAR tracks in the middle of a race, and the race goes on. People have died on football. The game goes on. Damar Hamlin, a couple of years, was it, a year ago, 2 years ago, everybody thought he was dead. They didn't know. The game went on. It's easy to look at this because everybody's emotional. Everybody's got an emotional investment in the situation. Owen's fans, Brett's fans, people that love Vince, people that hate Vince, people that love wrestling, people that hate wrestling. Everybody's got an emotional investment to one degree or another, which justifies what they say they would do. And it's a very easy thing to say what you would do when you've never even been remotely in that type of a position with those types of pressures and responsibilities. So I think Vince was being honest. I don't think there was any bullshit in that one. I think that was really who Vince is.
Well, we want to hear from you guys. What would you have done? Would you have continued the show? Would you have stopped the show? We're going to throw up a poll right now, and I want to give you the results of the polls that we've already been running so far today. 82% of the poll responders say they learned nothing new about the Monday Night War on Mr. McMahon. Yeah, I didn't learn a lot new about the Monday Night War episode here. I mean, I was shocked, I guess, to hear Vince say he would do it even if it was himself. And I guess it was a little shocking to hear Stephanie not so sure about the Mike Tyson timeline. But I think the biggest reveal may have been the Dr. Jerry Graham stuff, like the spitting of the water. Like, I had no idea. We had another poll. When did the Attitude Era start? 10% of the people listening today, Eric, say it's because Shawn Michaels shoved a sock down his shorts. Only 10% of the people bought that. 30% say it was DX, and an overwhelming 60% agree with me. It's all about the NWO. But we want to know from you, would you have continued the show? Now's your chance to ask Eric questions. If you've got them, fire them away. I want to shout out Rich. He just gifted 20 free memberships. Thank you very much.
Yo.
Appreciate that, man. That's super cool.
Hey, Conrad, can I throw something out there real quick before we go any further?
Please do.
I spoke in error. I apologize. The game where Damar Hamlin was hurt was canceled. The game went on. The NFL team went on. The Buffalo Bills went on. That game was canceled. My error. Thank you for pointing it out, Cujo. I do screw up every once in a while, but I admit it when I do.
Travis Medway is with us here live, and he says, hey, Eric, during the Monday Night Wars, was there any unspoken rules you wouldn't break, like same-day pay-per-views, town scheduling? Is there an idea or move you contemplated and ultimately didn't do that you really wish you had?
No, because some of those moves would have been suicidal. I mean, it would have been financial. It would have been so risky financially. That was just going too far. It was too much risk. The things that I did were risk-free, giving away finishes, starting my show 2 minutes before theirs, inventing the overrun, all that stuff were little stunts that I could do because of my relationship with the network I was on, but there were no risks involved in them.
They're all talking about Vince McMahon and the documentary that Netflix just dropped. Eric and I are going to be breaking this down episodically, day by day.
What I've seen so far is some of the best documentary storytelling I've ever seen in a documentary.
He just straight up says, I didn't want to be pro wrestling. I wanted to be more than pro wrestling.
It was probably grueling enough to get what they did get out of it. Vince likes to control what the perception of Vince McMahon is.
Hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications bell, and tell your friends to join us. We're looking to be interactive. We want to know what you thought of the documentary. So if you've got a question for Eric, please keep them coming. Welcome to the program and to our conversation today, Mr. Pat LaPrade. Pat, how are you, man?
Very good, very good. Thanks for the invitation.
I can't believe this is real. The one and only Wade Keller from the Pro Wrestling Torch. Wade, how are you, man?
I'm doing good. Although Conrad, you didn't tell me Eric was going to be part of this either.
Tune in tomorrow. Even Eric doesn't know who's going to show up. 5 p.m. Eastern, 83weeks.com. Don't forget, hit the subscribe button, turn on the notifications bell. We'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern, breaking down all things Mr. McMahon on Netflix right here at 83weeks.com.